Africa. Tell your neighbor, Africa.
What if I told you a man saw it coming before anyone else did? A man who was thousands of miles away from Burkina Faso, preaching inside a massive church in Lagos, Nigeria, looked into the future and spoke of a leader, a young soldier, a disruptor, someone who would shake the foundations of the old world and rise with the fire of the people behind him. Years before, Ibrahim Traoré stormed into power, before the streets of Ouagadougou were filled with chants for sovereignty and resistance, before French troops were told to pack up and go, Prophet TB Joshua may have already seen it. And like many of his cryptic prophecies, the world wasn't ready to hear it. In the early 2010s, long before Traoré's name meant anything to anyone outside the Burkina military, TB Joshua stood before his congregation and gave a chilling message. He didn't say any names. He never did, but his words were specific enough to raise eyebrows today. He spoke of a young man in uniform, a man not chosen through elections or democracy, a man who would be thrust into leadership during a time of chaos, a man who would challenge foreign domination in Africa and ignite a fire in the youth. At the time, few people paid attention. Most thought it was another one of those generalized prophecies. But when you listen to it now, with everything that's happening in Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and beyond, it feels less like a prediction and more like a warning. Let's rewind to October 2022. Out of nowhere, a little-known military captain named Ibrahim Traoré led a coup and overthrew Paul-Henri Damiba, who had himself taken power only months earlier. At 34 years old, Traoré became the world's youngest head of state. He didn't come with a polished political resume. He didn't wear a suit and tie. He came with military fatigues, a stern voice, and a message that struck a nerve across the entire African continent. Africa must be free. He accused the former leaders of serving foreign interests. He pointed fingers at France, the former colonial ruler, and said enough was enough. He told the West that Burkina Faso would no longer be a puppet, and that real sovereignty means real independence, economically, militarily, and spiritually. It was a bold stance, especially from a country still battling terrorism and economic hardship. But the people stood with him, not just in Burkina Faso, but all over Africa. Young people in Mali, Guinea, Senegal, and even as far as the DRC started chanting his name, posting his speeches, calling him a modern-day Thomas Sankara. And here's where things get strange. In that same prophecy years earlier, TB Joshua spoke of a leader who would not speak like the politicians we know, but like a fighter. He will be misunderstood, but the people will defend him. These words are almost a mirror reflection of what happened with Traoré. From the very beginning, the international media tried to paint him as a dictator, a radical, a dangerous man. But his people? They call him a liberator, a voice for the voiceless. Even more eerie is another quote from TB Joshua during that period. He said, "They will not be able to control him. He will resist every attempt to be silenced. And he will not bow to the pressures of foreign powers. This is not a man of war, but he has been trained by war." Think about that. Trained by war. Ibrahim Traoré wasn't raised in politics. He rose through the military during one of the most difficult periods in Burkina Faso's history. A time when extremist groups were overrunning villages and the central government was losing credibility fast. He saw the failures of diplomacy firsthand. And when the government seemed too weak or too compromised to act, he stepped in. Now let's be clear. TB Joshua never mentioned the name Ibrahim Traoré. But if you followed the Prophet's ministry, you'd know he rarely gave names. He believed in letting time reveal the truth. What he often did, though, was describe moments. Moments that sounded confusing in the present, but became clear with hindsight. So here's the big question. Was TB Joshua's prophecy about Traoré, Or is Traoré just one part of a much bigger spiritual shift TB Joshua foresaw? It's no secret that Prophet TB Joshua was deeply concerned about Africa's spiritual and political direction. He often warned that the continent would face a war not just of weapons, but of influence. He predicted economic sabotage, foreign-backed unrest, and a rising generation of leaders who would come not from politics, but from pain. Leaders molded by injustice. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly how Traoré positioned himself. Not as a savior, but as a product of a broken system. He doesn't walk around in luxury cars or hide behind massive presidential security details. He walks with the people, sometimes through crowded markets, shaking hands and listening to stories. And this terrifies the old system, because the last time Africa had a leader like that, his name was Thomas Sankara, and they made sure he didn't last long. So if TB Joshua did indeed see all this coming, what else did he see? In the same series of sermons, TB Joshua warned of a confrontation that would test the resolve of this young leader. He said they will try to isolate him. They will offer him deals. And when that fails, they will try to remove him. But his survival will depend on the prayers of his people. That line hits differently today, doesn't it? Since Traoré came to power, Burkina Faso has cut ties with France, strengthened relations with Russia, and become a symbol of the anti-neocolonial wave sweeping through West Africa. But that also means he has enemies, powerful ones. There have already been rumors of foreign-backed plots, assassination attempts, and covert operations. And each time, the people have rallied. They surround his home. They march with his image. They pray. And this takes us back to TB Joshua's final years. He always insisted that Africa's future would not be written in boardrooms or parliaments, but in the spiritual realm. That leaders who emerged from prayer, not politics, would shape the continent's destiny. He said, "Watch the nations the world ignores. From there, fire will rise." Burkina Faso was never considered a major player on the African stage, but today it's setting the tone. Traoré isn't just leading a country. He's inspiring a movement. Whether you agree with his methods or not, you can't deny the spiritual energy around him. And for those who believe in prophecy, the signs are too strong to ignore. So, was TB Joshua pointing us to this very moment? Did he, through prayer and revelation, glimpse the rise of Ibrahim Traoré? And if he did, what should we do with that knowledge? Because if the prophecy was real, if this is the man TB Joshua warned us about, then it means one more thing. The battle isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning. The forces that have shaped African politics for decades. The puppeteers behind the scenes, the economic manipulators, the hidden hands of foreign power. They won't go down without a fight. And if Traoré is truly part of a divine plan, he will need more than weapons and speeches. He will need spiritual covering. He will need the people, not just of Burkina Faso, but across Africa, to stand guard, not just with protests, but with prayers. Prophet TB Joshua may no longer be with us, but perhaps his words still echo, louder now than ever before. So, I ask you, do you think this is a case of prophecy fulfilled, or is it all just a powerful coincidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's have this conversation. And if you want more deep, mysterious stories connecting spirituality, leadership, and Africa's destiny, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Because some truths are too powerful to stay hidden,